Hi and welcome to another gaming video, and in today's video I want to just quickly talk about GBARunner2 on a DS Lite. Well, I say DS Lite, I've made a few Game Boy macros over the past few months, and one of the bonuses of using a DS Lite or even a DS is that you still have the DS cartridge slot, and if you've got a flash cart you can run what they call GBARunner2, and it's a GBA emulator which runs off of the slot one, the DS cartridge slot. Game Boy Advance games are hellishly expensive. You can obviously play proper Game Boy Advance games on a macro or a DS Lite, but if you have a collection of games and you want to run them all from one place, you can use a flash cart. Now I'm using a very old R4i card, works great in DS Lites, and I'm running GBARunner2 so I can play some of my Game Boy Advance games. I've set mine to auto boot, so it will boot straight into the R4 card, and I'll just go down to GBARunner2, and there we go, we have a list of the Game Boy Advance games that I own and like to play. This one is Metal Slug, and you get a Game Boy Advance on this awesome DS Lite backlit wonderful screen, and it is one of the best ways to play Game Boy Advance games. GBARunner2 is very simple to set up. You need to grab the one for whichever DS model you have got, so the DS and the DS Lite use the same one, then there's a version for the DSi, and then there's one for the 3DS, and if you've got custom firmware running on your DSi or your 3DS, then I think it's probably built into Twilight menu. But if you're using a DS Lite, or if you've got a macro, then you need to go and get the NDS file. Pop it on the root of your SD card, have a folder on there called GBA, pop all your ROMs in there, and as soon as you boot GBARunner2, it will detect the ROMs in that particular folder. So I'm just going to show you that again. So there's GBARunner2. For the DS Lite version or the DS version, the ARM9 DLDI version is recommended. It's the one I've had the most success with, and there you go. You just, if they're in the GBA folder, it will list all of the ROMs in there and you can play them. It's a bit hit and miss, even though the DS Lite and Game Boy Macro can play proper Game Boy Advance games via the slot 2. When you're running it from a flash cart, it's emulated and it's not the greatest of experiences. If a game runs, then it generally will run absolutely perfectly fine. It's about a 90% rate for the games that run. There are a number of games that will not run at all. There are quite a few games that have issues, but for the majority, GBARunner2 does a fantastic job of playing Game Boy Advance games on a DS Lite, DS and Game Boy Macro. I haven't tried GBARunner2 on a DSi or a 3DS yet. That's another mission for another video. But if you've got a Game Boy Macro or if you've got a DS Lite, then you can quite easily run Game Boy Advance games from the DS slot. And one of the things that I have come across is, because you've only got one screen on a macro, anything that talks to the top screen or displays anything on the top screen is a bit tricky to set up, but you can do it easily on a macro. Everything is displayed on the bottom screen for GBARunner2. You might have to go into the settings. Actually, I'm just going to show you that. If you go into the right menu, you'll see a settings menu, and if you go down to display settings, display game on bottom screen, you need to tick it. GBARunner2 will run on the bottom screen, but by default it will display the game on the top screen because it's meant for a DS Lite. So all you need to do is just go in and make sure it's ticked there for display game on bottom screen. Otherwise, when you do go to play a game, it will shift from the bottom screen to the top, and with a macro you can't do that. So that's GBARunner2. Great little tool and fantastic for Game Boy macros. link, like, subscribe, enjoy.